Unit 6, Lesson 3, Trigonometry, or SOH CAH TOA. Your objective for this lesson is to use trigonometric and inverse trigonometric ratios to solve problems. Okay, so let's start off by talking about what I mean when I say trigonometric ratios, or trig ratios. So you could say trig instead of trigonometric. I will too. It's a long word. So trig ratios. A trig ratio is the ratio of lengths of two sides of a right triangle. And the three most common ratios, the three that you're going to see on this video, are sine, which is abbreviated SIN. It is said sine though, not sin. So sine. Cosine, which is abbreviated COS. And tangent, which is abbreviated tan, TAN. Okay. And looking at what each of these are, so here's my right triangle, triangle PQR. It is a right triangle. The right angle is at angle R. And what I want you to notice about this triangle that you're going to have to be able to use is that the sides and angles that are opposite each other have the same letter, okay? So big P and little p are across from each other, big R, little r across from each other, big Q, little q are across from each other. You use the big letters for angle names and the little letters for side names. That is standard. I know some of you like to use all capital letters or all lowercase letters, but you really have to use both to differentiate here. That's just the way it is. So, okay, let's look at the definition of these three ratios. So let's start off with sine, and we're doing all of these with respect to Q. So I'm going to put a star at Q, so that we remember that's who we're talking about. So sine of Q is the ratio of the opposite side, so opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. So in this case, Q divided by R. And Q is the opposite side. We can draw that arrow going straight out. It does not touch it. So the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse is sine of Q. Cosine is the adjacent side. Adjacent means that it is next to the angle, but not the hypotenuse. So the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. Adjacent is P, hypotenuse is R. So cosine is P divided by R. Tangent of Q, tan Q, is the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. So tangent is opposite, which again is little q, divided by adjacent, which is P. I know that this is a lot, but we have a way for you to remember this. So, and you saw this on the last slide. SOH CAH TOA. It's kind of fun to say. You can try it. SOH CAH TOA. That stands for sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Ca. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Toa. So we have SOH CAH TOA. SOH CAH TOA. You could also write it, if you need some way to remember that this is division, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. SOH CAH TOA. SOH CAH TOA. Example 1. Find sine A cosine A, and tan A. Express each ratio as a fraction and a decimal to the nearest hundredth. Hundredth means 2 decimal places. So, 2 decimal places. Okay. Okay, and we're doing this for A. So I'm going to circle the big A because that's who we're using here. I don't want to get lost. And I'm also going to write out SOH CAH TOA. SOH CAH TOA. I want to find sine. Well, I know that sine A is opposite over hypotenuse. What's opposite of A? 5. 5 is opposite of A. So this is 5 divided by, what's the hypotenuse? What's opposite of C? 13. So sine A is 5 divided by 13, which is equal to approximately 0.38. So sometimes you'll have to express this as a decimal. Sometimes I'm going to ask you to leave it as a fraction. Please pay attention so that you follow the instructions appropriately. Now we're going to find cosine. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Finding that right here. Who's adjacent to A? Well, I have 2 sides that touch A. This one is the hypotenuse, so this one is adjacent. We could even label here. So I have 12 over 13. And this is approximately equal to 0.92. Okay, last, we want to find tan A. Tan is opposite over adjacent. Opposite is 5. Divide by adjacent is 12. To 2 decimal places. 5 divided by 12 is 0.42. Round appropriately. Okay, so that is my answer for example 1. Okay, so we're about to take a look at something called inverse trig ratios. Inverse trig ratios undo trig ratios, and they are denoted with this little -1 that you see up here. That is an exponent, so tan to the -1, you can think of it that way. And it is read, though, as arc sine. So you don't say inverse sine, you say arc sine. Arc cosine, arc tangent. These are your inverse trig ratios. Example 2. Use a calculator to find the measure of angle T to the nearest tenth. Okay, well, first of all, this is my angle that I'm looking at. And in terms of T, I have 29 is the opposite side. 34 is the hypotenuse. And let's look and see what this gives me. I have SOH CAH TOA. Well, I don't have anything for adjacent. So anything with an A up here, I'm going to cross out. So no CAH, no TOA. I have sine. I can find sine. So sine of T equals opposite, which is 29, divided by hypotenuse, which is 34. But I don't want to find sine T. I want to find T. how can I get t by itself? If you're saying divide by sine, that's wrong. This is not multiplication. This is not sine times t. It is sine of t. This is a function. What I want to do is arcsine both sides. So arcsine of sine of t is equal to arcsine of 29 over 34. So over here, those cancel, and I'm just left with a t. Now this part here, you could, I suppose, find 29 over 34 and then arcsine, but your answer is going to be inaccurate. So you want to actually put that fraction into your calculator. Now, you'll see this row of buttons right here. You have sine, cosine, and tangent. So that's the 1, 2, 3, 4th row of buttons. And in yellow above them, there's arcsine, arccosine, and arctangent. What I'm going to use right now is arcsine, because that's what we have in our problem. I'm going to hit second to get the yellow. Sine gives me arcsine. You see it's sine to the -1, just like I've written. I'm going to plug in 29 divide by 34. Oh, before we do this, we have to check the mode. So we want an answer in degrees, so you have to go to the mode that's next to the second button, go down to where it says radian and degree, and highlight degree by pressing enter. Okay, so now I'm going to hit enter, and I get 58.5. I want it to the nearest tenth, so 58.5 degrees approximately is what t is. And that's my answer. Now it looks like that is actually it for this lesson.